Hi everybody, my name is Tucker Sauer-Pavanka and I'm the Director of Product Management here at Crema.
And my name is Michael Luchin and I'm the Senior Product Manager here at Crema.
Today we're going to be talking about the upcoming trends over the next decade for product management, not only at Crema but also in the industry as a whole. So one of the biggest trends I think we're going to see in the next 10 years in product organizations really is this concept of emotional intelligence becoming even more important for the product management role or function. We see that a lot today, but it's going to become increasingly important in the coming years, I think, as product organizations become more and more mature and they're wanting really healthy development teams.
Yeah.
Traditionally in the past, it's kind of not been top of mind in all those organizations. And as we see more of those becoming mature, I think we'll see that even more.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we're going that way?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think it's because people are realizing that the humans that they're working with need that. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to they're humans. And if you have that empathy in the workplace, you already have the empathy for the users. That's traditionally been part of this role for a long time. But if you have empathy for your teammates, it can produce a lot healthier of a team. And conversely, they'll produce maybe even more results for your the goals that you're trying to reach.
Kind of create like that oft desired psychological safety that so many teams have been trying to figure out how to obtain.
Right, exactly. And I think this is not to say that other roles or other functions in the team can't have that, right? I think they should. It's just we're in a position where we can help lead or coach in that because it is kind of part of our role from a user point of view and having that emotional intelligence with users. Now it's just about bringing it back into the team.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really good. So I think one of the areas that we're really going to see a trend going towards is less focus on structured processes, meaning like Scrum by the book or following Kanban by the book, or even some of these enterprises processes like SAFe as well. And we're going to start going more towards, I think, frameworks. What I mean by frameworks isn't necessarily like a replacement process. Frameworks, I think, would serve as a way to exist to kind of bridge a team's culture and kind of what they're trying to do at the same time and how they collaborate, how they work together, what their norms are, in a very healthy way. We're starting to see this start to kind of happen in small teams like ours right now, very organically, and there's so much value in kind of that, almost, I would say, return back to the Agile manifesto, people over process. Now, I know that that's going to kind of maybe ruffle some feathers, especially if you are practicing a process today. I mean, even myself, I hold a certified Scrum professional certification, but I also don't think that that's kind of like where process stops with teams. And I think it's going to be more about how can we kind of like pair emotional intelligence and all these other kind of more soft factors into moving a team effectively forward. It's ambiguous, but I think it's intentionally ambiguous.
Yeah. Why do you think that maybe things have gotten more rigid over the years and maybe gotten a little bit away from the Agile manifesto?
That's a great question. And I think it has to do with control. And as humans, we like to control things. Yet at the same time, I think it's universally recognized now the value that Agile practices and processes bring. Yet that's when you start to see processes like SAFe bubble up. It tries to wrangle that and add some objectivity to it. And I think that's okay to an extent, but what's not okay is when it becomes, for lack of a better term, religious in terms of following these processes for a team. It ends up stymieing the team and it ends up not solving the problems that it was brought into originally.
Yeah, that's really good. Another trend that I think we're going to end up seeing in the next 10 years is, and probably even before then, is how enterprises think about budgeting for their products that they're providing their customers. You know, we've seen in the last 10 years a little bit of a shift on that thinking, but still a lot of the budget lives within the CMO role, right? In a lot of organizations, the products eventually still have to go to the CMO to get budgetary approval. I think we're going to end up seeing a lot more product organizations have chief product officers, and we're already seeing that in some newer companies, but I think some of the more mature, maybe a little bit more traditional and thinking type companies are going to introduce that role into their executive team and have their own very large budgets to use. And I think we see that with marketing now because I had somebody say the other day they go to marketing for the slush fund because they just always have the biggest budgets because they don't know how necessarily exactly how they're going to spend their budget every year. But when you're able to tie that directly to products that you're providing your customers and the experience and how you can improve that and how it can improve your revenue, I think we should see that more in the coming years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you think that the CPO role is going to be primarily an internal-facing role or an external-facing role?
That's a fantastic question. I don't know if I know the right answer because I think it depends on the company and how they think about their products, right? I think you're going to have some companies that are providing more services to their clients, and those might be a little bit more internal-facing. Those kind of product organizations might be business-to-business type products. They might be a little bit more internal-facing. But where I could see there being more external-facing are the products that people like you and I, or not necessarily you and I, but most consumers know about, right?
Yeah.
So applications that people are familiar with. Those people I see having a more external facing role just because they're going to be a leader in that space, most likely.
In the way that this role is going to be funding these projects, it kind of sounds almost like it would be an internal VC of sorts, which could probably lead towards some interesting kind of pitches and culture changes for enterprises that some smaller teams like ours with our Venture Lab Friday have afforded to be able to experiment with and now might start being seen in enterprises as well.
I mean, the hope would be that this is going to help drive more innovation in those companies because if you have to pitch your work to get funded, it could create some really cool ideas for those companies. And I think a lot of the times now, because of how the budgets are handled, they're probably not pitched in the same way that you would pitch to a product officer, right? You're going to pitch in words that maybe the other team members or other executive team members might gravitate towards a little bit better.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So I think one of the places that we're going to see a trend in the next decade is around communication. And everyone might be thinking communication is already an incredibly crucial part of our role. But I think it's going to become even more crucial. And that's really, I think, in part due to the rise of remote work and just changes to how companies operate. Remote work over the last few years has evolved to be something that is expected at any employer, whether it's part or full time. And even when you have just one person on your team who is not working literally next to you at a desk, I think that is an argument for change in how the entire team communicates and collaborates. And therefore, from a product management perspective, it's going to be even more imperative that our communication our written communication becomes more thorough, more kind of concise at the same time, more analytical, but also we leverage various types of asynchronous collaboration tools. We're huge fans of Miro, for example, as ways to communicate and collaborate so that not only does it support just the kind of socioeconomic rise of remote work, but it also just supports kind of the new era of collaboration that we've really stepped into.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Another thing that I've seen recently is kind of the rise of these traditional product management trainings. I'm not talking about Scrum training or things like that. I'm talking about more structured or more academic maybe programs to become a product manager. At our conference that we went to in Cleveland, Carnegie Mellon was there, for example, showcasing their new product management master's program. And so I wonder if we're going to see more of that in the coming years.
Yeah, and also kind of what form is that going to take? And how is that going to shape how companies hire for product managers? Because product management, it's generally understood, but it takes so many different practical forms at different companies with different cultures. And so how might these programs kind of cater towards that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, we've done some partner work with folks like Louder Than 10, for example. I think they're on the right track with the training. But I think you're right that because it comes in so many different forms, I do wonder if these more structured academic programs, they're good on a resume without a doubt. And there's definitely going to be value that you get out of it. But the practical application of it is what I'm most concerned about.
Let me ask this. If somebody came to Crema today with one of these programs under their belt and no other experience, would they get an interview?
They would, right? I normally, I wouldn't say that, one certification is going to get you an interview. But if you've gone to college for, probably 2 years for it, it definitely, in my mind, would warrant an interview. Now, it wouldn't mean, if you have zero experience and you just have that, it wouldn't mean you're coming in at a senior level, right?
Yeah, right.
You're going to come in at a junior level because you don't have any experience. But it would, at least for me, warrant an interview and at least a conversation, depending on obviously what we were looking for at the time.
Yeah, there we go.
So I think another thing that we're going to see soon, and we're already seeing with our clients and obviously internally as well, is more collaboration with the product team members to make product decisions. I feel like we've seen some people come to us and the decisions are very centralized and made up the chain versus involving the team members that are actually working on the product day in and day out.
Yeah.
They're the people that are very close to the product. They're very close to the limitations of the product. And so involving them in the conversations, the decisions, I think is going to become increasingly important, especially as these companies mature more and more. I hope that a lot of companies are already doing this, but just from what I've seen, it's not common practice quite yet. Some of the more innovative companies maybe are, but not some of the more mature companies.
Yeah, and I think there's just so much value from involving other product team members in those decision-making processes, due to the reason you mentioned as well, but just from having a kind of, if you're looking at the team as like one kind of organism, so to speak, you've got like specialized functions, but if your team members are kind of T-shaped, going deep in one area, but then kind of generalize across the other, then there might be able to be some connections and inferences that the team can make that might end up providing a solution that otherwise wouldn't have been brought up. All the time on our teams here at Crema, I love that those types of things are able to come up because it's so easy for any product team member, I think, to kind of put our blinders on whatever our role is and focus in on that. But when we actually kind of open that up and think a little more outside the box and leverage our other team members to help do that, then there can be some really great insights and decisions to be made.
Absolutely. And I think it goes even beyond their specific craft, right? You have a development team member, but their worldview, they might have a completely different life experience that can play into the decision that's being made. That can go in many different directions. Yeah. But I think that's why it's so important to get that. I think we'll see more diversity in products and how they're thought of in terms of design and development if we actually get everybody's opinion on the matter. Now, that said, you can't get everybody's opinion on the matter. It has to be done in a structured way, but that's why that's why at least I've been noticing a lot of different decision-making frameworks that have come out over the past few years that really help kind of narrow that focus and help teams make decisions. Yeah,
and that like, just kind of getting life experiences in there, I think is so important. That's something that I'm proud to say that we have a passionate group of folks at Crema that are invested in this, which is like thinking about accessibility considerations. Right. It's something that's so easy, I think, when you're like kind of on the whiteboard, like big sky, dreaming about what some cool features are, about like, designing out in a really kind of cool way or something like that. But when you consider kind of outside your sphere of your walk of life, so to speak, then that product can be not only much more accessible and empathetic, but also at the same time, you're going to have a better reach with that product too.
Definitely.
One of the other things that we're going to start seeing over the next decade, we're already seeing it now, but we're going to really see it be part of the PM toolkit, is low-code tools for rapid prototyping. Not in the way of like putting together a sketch or a mock-up, but more so like how can you actually functionally set up the outcome of what you're trying to drive for. I know like you used Airtable to kind of create some internal apps for us, so to speak. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's all these different applications out there on the market that can do all these specific things. And I think that's great. There's probably an opportunity for a lot of those, but a lot of times it doesn't quite fit what you're trying to do. And so by using these other tools that are maybe a little bit more general, but they kind of allow you to build whatever you need to build for your use case, you're able to just build a customized thing that just works for you without having to have a company that's trying to dive into one use case, right? So these companies that are kind of providing the tool to fit many different use cases, I think are going to continue to succeed. Like you said, Airtable is one of them. I use the combination of Airtable, Zapier, we have it connected to, our Jira and Copper. And really the Airtable has ended up being this like living, breathing tool for us that does everything, kind of as a central database for our operations.
Yeah. I mean, and I think just kind of like where you're going like there with Zapier and other tools as well is one of the things I love looking at are tools that have those kind of open APIs to interface with other tools, because then you're able to basically construct like this complex service, the Airtable functions, for example, in a way that kind of solves these outcomes that would traditionally be a like developed app, so to speak. Webflow is another great example of kind of a low-code tool that we use at Crema. It's only getting more and more feature rich, and it's just it's easy to start thinking about like the next decade, like how can tools like Webflow really evolve to kind of cater towards this, and then what impact does that have on product management and how we approach our roles and how our team approaches product?
Yeah, definitely.
So one of the trends as we exit the last decade is a lot of analytical tools that can provide analytics on our products like Heap and Intercom, and of course more engagement in Google Analytics and other platforms like that. As we head forward, I think there's a lot of discussion around, well, how do you leverage machine learning technologies to take advantage of those analytics in ways that we haven't been able to take advantage of them to date. And then in turn, like how do we use that from a product management perspective within our roles over the coming decade? I have a hunch that it's going to be less about these tools making decisions for us and more about these tools kind of surfacing summaries of data that we can then use to make informed strategic decisions from a very strategic context, kind of with these tools kind of saying like, here's the options, and then relying on human intuition and judgment at the end of the day. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that these tools are going to, with the introduction of more machine learning, like you said, be able to provide suggestions. I think there's going to be less of us trying to comb through data and find the trends ourselves, and it instead surfacing those trends to us and informing the strategy. And again, like you said, I don't think that it takes away from our role or is replacing our role or our function. More so, it's enriching it, right? I think that we're going to be able to use these tools to help say, this strategy will get you there because of all these things, right? Because of all these triggers that you're going to pull. And you'll be able to run scenarios, I think, to help see if that is the right strategy or not. And you can run scenarios on analytics today, but there's a lot of manual setup with that. And I think we're going to see a lot of that go away.
Yeah. We hope you enjoyed joining us for this discussion today about the future decade of product management trends. Really appreciate you watching. And if you have any thoughts or questions about like what the next decade could bring for product management, drop a comment down below and let us know. And if you like this video as well, please give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe as well to learn more about product teams. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the future.